All right, here we go. Welcome to week number 3 of our Global Executive Apprenticeship Program. And I'm Hernan Mayol. I am the founder and chief volunteer for Apprentice Worldwide. Believe it or not, I don't get paid for doing these summer things. I just have a lot of fun hanging out with you guys, which is the coolest thing in the planet. First of all, let me acknowledge, these World Cup games have been brutal to watch, particularly the last one when I almost fell asleep until the end. But things are moving along, and this game is similar to our game of life, which is one that we have to fight hard to get to our goal. And to do that, we need to attach ourselves and surround ourselves with good people. So we have a lot of good people here, and I want to make sure that I get some feedback before I dive into my presentation about your experience so far. Have you met your mentors? Have you had one conversation at least? Have you learned anything? Please, if you can share, that would be very nice. You want me to go around the room? How about that? Yeah. All right. Let's start with Elvis. Anything you want to share?
Yeah, the sad story is I didn't make it, by the way. I tried the
You didn't make
emails.
it?
Yeah, I tried to get his WhatsApp number, but I didn't get
Who's
it.
your mentor?
My mentor is
Who's your mentor?
Ignacio Rivera.
Keep going. I see him every day. Keep going. Every
Really?
day. Bug him like if there's no tomorrow. He signed up for this. Bug him. If not, he wouldn't be here.
Okay.
It's your responsibility. He's a busy executive. You got to bug him, bug him, bug him, bug him, bug him. And when he says no, then, he can say no to me. And then if that's an issue, I can change him up to somebody else. But you continue. Okay? So don't
Okay.
stop. Anybody else? You learn a few things here or no? You learn anything from Mo and from my buddy Otto last week?
Yeah, a lot. Mostly, I'd love to go back with more after finishing my examinations here. There's a lot. There's a lot to take from Mo Hassan. So the book you had, I'll request so I can read more. We are at the other side of the world. We know nothing about AI. So we just know ChatGPT and the other Grok and what. But with Mo Hassan, it's something new. I need to give my full time to go deep to know about it.
It's funny that you mentioned that because there's a saying that says, and I say it a lot in Spanish, is in the eye of the blind people, the one-eyed man rules. Meaning, if you have one eye, you're in a better position than the ones that don't. Meaning, keep going, right? Keep going. Just learn a little more. You'll do better than the other people. All right, Dom, since you have your camera, yes, sir. Have you learned anything yet?
Yes, definitely. I had an excellent networking opportunity with you and a couple of the other mentors. We watched the Germany game a little over a week ago, and then we spoke today on the phone and had an excellent talk. I got a little bit of a preview on the talk today, and looking forward to it. But yeah, lots of learning so far.
Excellent. By the way, we saved the best for last. Not that I'm bad, but I save a few surprises for you guys. Cool. All right. Mike Tafour. How about your mentor? Is he a cool guy or what?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's a pretty cool guy. Just like Dominic said, I also went to a meeting last week. We watched the Germany game. We're with a few of our counselor mentors and everyone, and it was pretty cool. And then I had a nice conversation with you today. Learned a lot about your past and how you've done everything and what we're going to look into today, and it's all pretty good.
Cool stuff. Cool stuff. All right. Who else do we have? Alan, have you spoken to your mentor yet or no?
Yeah, we were on the phone. couple like a week or two ago, and we had a really pleasant talk. And yeah, it's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. I think he knows a few things.
Definitely does. Definitely
Ex-
does.
Thank you.
Excellent.
I appreciate that. We can. I'll pay you later.
Awesome. Zach, did you talk to my friend or no?
Yeah, I did. Aneta?
Yes.
Yeah,
How
it was
was
a good chat. We had a chat last week about some things, and we also had the opportunity to talk about some financial modeling work I could do over the summer for one of the companies she does, and like something like, I believe, like create financial models for a certain company over the next 3 to 5 years, and like assess like the financial health of the company and see where it will be in the next 3 to 5 years. So yeah, it was a really good chat to have, and I believe we're going to have a conversation. I'm going to have a conversation with her tomorrow, so that will be really good to talk about and like be able to set up the plans from there. So yeah.
Pretty awesome. Great. Anybody else? Fine. I think you spoke to Enrique, no?
Were you talking to me?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Divine, no worries. Divine, you there? I know connection is not always good in Nigeria. But I think you spoke to Enrique, which happens to be a good friend of mine, and also Elvis's old mentor. So they have a common mentor, great cool guy who works for High Tech's marketing. So that's awesome. Anybody else? And Manuel, how about you? Did you talk yet or no?
Yes, I spoke with Federico Marin. Really cool guy, very knowledgeable, and we have a couple of things going on. We still have a couple of scheduled calls going in back and forth with different topics regarding economics and finance. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes.
I like it. Okay. How about Lorenzo? Lorenzo, have you met yet or not yet?
I haven't. He never responded to my email, so
Who's
I
he?
haven't met him yet. Andres Bedoya.
Because Andres, I know he's been going to the Columbia games a lot. So you gotta keep bugging him.
Okay, I'll send him another one.
He will come around. He will come around. Trust me.
Mhm.
You can't wait for you guys to meet. You have a lot in common. And Jack, how about you? You got anybody yet or no?
We didn't officially meet yet, but I spoke with him on LinkedIn.
Who's yours?
Michael.
Michael.
Yeah, we messaged each other on LinkedIn. Babbitt.
What's
shit.
the
Oh, that's me.
Mike Babbitt?
Hey, Jack. Sorry about that.
No, no worries.
Sorry, Jack. I missed your message there. Let's connect after this.
Yeah, of course.
There you go. So Mike is doubling up, as you can see with the New Yorkers. He's doing like me. I have Dominic and Mike Tafur, and he's got you and Alan. So you guys can get to hang out at some point in New York. Awesome. Last but definitely not least, Albert. I know you met with your mentor, no?
I have in person, which I prefer, but we finally had scheduled our formal discussion over the phone, over Zoom, actually. And it was good. He gave me a lot of insight that I looked for. I came with a few open-ended questions and open ears, and so I think we finally established the rapport that I was looking for.
Excellent. So one of the things you've noticed is that I spread out the discussions for the GAAP for 6 weeks. Sometimes you might have to double up, right? Have 1 or 2 sessions at the same time, so you can advance a little bit. Remember, although our program ends July 31st, your relationship with your mentor can continue. Nobody says no. It's just this is a formal time that you have with that person for a specific outcome. And remember, the outcome that we want is to better position you for your job that you want to get in the future. Okay. And how do you do that? Well, the last week, all of you are going to somehow work on a presentation so that we, the mentors, can share it with the entire world that we know, no? In your fields. That way we present you, but we want you to go through the journey first so that you have, some material to share, no? So what have you learned? What have you learned about yourself? What's your experience, et cetera, et cetera. And these things we're going to share. And hopefully you don't know where this leads. And we're going to talk about that today as well. In the process, you never know what the journey brings, but you're taking the steps. This is amazing, right? This is what's going to get you to the next phase. The other thing is, I encourage you to please do a lot of research for every single segment. And instead of you asking the questions to your mentor, you just present and let them tell you whether what you read or what you shared is can be amended, meaning new things that you might not have not looked at, or if it's a reality, or the behind the scenes. You always want to know the behind the scenes of the story. That's what's going to get you better prepared, because everybody talks about the good thing. Rarely people speak about their struggles. What I say, the Instagram life, everything looks fine and dandy. I don't see much people sharing, you know what? When I was a child, I got beat up, or I lost my job for X, Y, and Z. I don't see very many people sharing negative news, right? They share always they try to share always what is good. And it's okay. I mean, this is where the in-between lines happen, is real life. Real life happens in between these segments, that we call our curriculum or our resume, that get built only on success. And with that, I wanted to bring this topic into fruition. So we'll go now to our official talk, which is failing forward. Failing forward. And it's how to make out of setbacks some stepping stones towards your better future. Okay. And I asked this question before, and I think I know the answer, but I want to see from a show of hands, how many of you has set out a plan and then completely it went in another direction and it went bad? Have you ever failed at something in your life? Raise your hand if you failed at something. 1, 2, 3, 4, bling, bling, bling. I think we got pretty much everybody, right? So this is phenomenal. It just shows you that every eight, and I'm sure the other people, if they can click, they could. But the majority of us are, set up our lives in one direction and it goes in another direction. And it has sometimes nothing to do with us, right? Before decisions were made for you, right? What school you went to. Typically, you try to influence your parents. Maybe in high school, you had more clout. Definitely in college, you had a little bit more clout. And that led you to maybe with some of you where you are today, right? Where you're taking courses and you have a checklist, and that checklist, if you take 50 classes in a certain topic, eventually you'll end up with a degree of something. Whether you change or don't change because you have a better feel for one area or another, that takes you in different directions, right? But let's say pretty much if you want to study finance and take certain courses in finance, you graduate with a finance degree. And that is what happens all the way to college, right? But once you graduate college, what ends up happening is your agenda, which is a wonderful one, is in contrast with other people's agendas. So you start, in some cases, you make alliances that between you and the other person, and you do it together. In some cases, it puts you in conflict, and that conflict can lead to a horrible disaster. Sometimes what you could call a failure that is not necessarily your doing. No? And I bet you the most of the failures that happen in your side, 90% of them, 90% of them have been. Hold on, there's one more person here. I think there was one more person. Sorry about that. Most of these decisions, or these are not necessarily your fault, right? These are not necessarily your fault. So let me show you here. I did a little presentation for you guys. Let me see if you can see it, because I'm not going to be able to see it, your faces. You have to confirm to me that is possible. Hold on one second. No, there's screen. Okay, here we go. All right, hold on. Let me try this again. Hold on. Okay, let me know. Hold on one second. Hold on. You guys see my presentation or not yet?
Your screen's being shared. It's still coming up.
Okay. Hold on. It might be the bandwidth. Okay, I'm going to ask everybody to turn off their cameras to see if that can help. Might be the bandwidth. Hold on. No?
That seems to have worked.
How about now? Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Clearly.
Okay. It says failing forward, turning setbacks into stepping stones. So,
Sir, it looks like you changed the tab. So we had it
okay.
on screen. Now we're seeing something else.
Can you see my second slide or no?
No.
No, we're just seeing like a blank browser. We see your tabs, but not the pop-up.
Okay,
You may
hold
need
on.
to share the window instead of the tab.
All right, hold on. This is what happens when we're live. Okay. All right, let me try this again. Sorry, guys. All right. There we go. Now? Did that work?
Now it's just a blank screen, blank black screen.
So you can't see my presentation. Hold on one second.
I think it'd be better to end the presentation and start again.
All right, hold on one second. Okay, hold on, guys. All right, hold on. Let me try one more time. Allow to share screen. Share entire screen.
Oh wow! Now we see it many, many times. Well,
No,
now
How about now?
No,
now that's good.
It's good.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Awesome. So failing forward, turning setbacks into stepping stones. You see some setbacks. You got to work with what we have. So tell me if you can see this.
Yeah, I can see that.
Awesome. So it says the penalty kick of fear. What ends up happening here is sometimes we are poised with a big task, right? Getting the ball to the goal, no? And we start fearing ourselves that we're not worthy, we can't do it, right? Why? Because we are gonna hear no's, because we're afraid of looking foolish, because we don't know what the new direction is gonna bring, no? So we spend most of the time trying to avoid failure than actually pursuing success. No? So I shared this before. No, successful people don't fail less. They just learn a little differently. Professor Mistake is what I call the best teacher of all. No, so some people see the goal and they don't, they're afraid of playing. No, because they don't know what's going to happen on the other side, right? But when you're in a failing forward mode, you're allowing for failure to teach you a few things. You also have to, you're afraid of that you're going to make a mistake because you're afraid that it's going to define who you are. And I always say you have to look at things as you can't let your past define who you are. It's your next action, right? It's your next thing that's going to give you the outcome that you're looking for. Now, what happened in the past? In the past, guys, we're already here. The past is in the past. No? So this is where we separate ourselves by start looking at ourselves and saying, okay, I can do this. No? And then the gamer mentality. Are you there? You. Mike?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So the gamer mentality. Guys, you and I know that if we have plenty of food in our living room and we have a big TV and we have a remote control, we could be stuck all day long in our house without moving and without doing anything, right? The hunter in us went and got all these things and then accumulated all these goods, and then we reap the profits of it. But are you the hunter? No? And that's the question that I always ask. Are you the hunter or you're living off the spoils of somebody else, right? And this is the mentality that changes or shifts things. And let me turn this off in a little bit. Let me turn this off and come back to you guys. So, you guys there? One of the things that I realize, and I have two girls, right? And my girls are amazing. But what I realize is her and them and me had a very different upbringing. So social media is now putting us out there a lot more. But my girls have been in social media probably when they were 13, right? So what happens is in this game of life, what I see is they got validation from whatever it is that they put in social media, whether it was a nice dance or whether it was something nice that they were wearing. They get the validation, the continuous validation of things that happen. And this interaction, creates a social interaction with somebody outside of the screen, more general in nature, usually broader in scope. And this is different with guys. Guys, unless you are forced by your parents, which was my case. It's very rare that you have these type of interactions, because not, I'm just generalizing, but some guys, they don't care about what they're wearing, or they don't care about that social interaction that much. What they care is, are they okay? And men start developing the social skill sets later on in life. Later on, whether if you're in a fraternity and you start interacting that way, or in a club, and then later on, as you start making money, you become more confident. So why do I give you this difference? Because sometimes hold us back from attempting something, because we don't want to fail, right? We don't want to fail. So social interactions is what gets us to do that failure. And I'm going to show you, if I can go back again, I'm going to show you a picture of something that my dad used to tell me. So let me see if I can share this again. 20,000 screens. Huh? Can you see it?
Yeah.
Awesome. So my dad, which I had very limited interactions with because my parents got divorced, I was 7 years old. My parents got divorced for financial reasons. I found out this later on in life. But one of the lessons that he taught me was, I put you in a military academy. I was in a military academy for 12 years. He put me from 6th grade, from 6-year-old to 18 years old. Okay. And he would tell me, Hernan, no matter what happens, keep fighting. When you're down, always keep your sword up. And I go, Dad, I don't get it. I don't get it. What do you mean keep your sword up when you're fighting? And he used to say it in Spanish, pa atrás ni pa coger impulso, which means retreat, not even to take a whiplash and move forward. No, it's just keep moving forward. So, and I asked him, one time I asked him when I was a teenager, I asked him, Dad, why do you always tell me this, that to keep my sword up? And he goes, Hernan, very simple. If you're in the battle and you're fighting and you have your sword up, whoever your enemy is will be afraid to come to you, because they don't know if you're going to come back. They don't want to get cut, and maybe you cut a few people in the battle and you win the battle. But if you keep your arm raised with your sword up, if your friend comes along, he grabs your arm and picks you up. Grabs your arm and picks you up. And this is something that I didn't understand, right? Because in failure, what happens in failure? Failure is the effect of failure is isolation. No? Is retreating. Retreating is the effect of failure. And that is something that, guys, if when you have a winning mentality, you have to change that mentality. You cannot be in isolation. No, I told you, my parents divorced. Well, I could have cried in the corner. You know what? And I did plenty of it. But what I learned was to appreciate relationships. I learned that I didn't want to be. I didn't want to put my kids in that situation. Right? I needed to work on myself and work on my relationship. I needed to learn finances. So when my parents got divorced, because of finances, they didn't know how to handle their finance. Or my dad didn't handle his finances well. He spent all the money left and right. So this became an issue, right? That later on, I in college, I studied finance and marketing, international finance and marketing at the University of Miami. And guess what? I studied finance. I knew that I was good at sales and interacting and socializing. But what I was not that good at, because I didn't have the upbringing, was in my finances, right? So I decided to make out of the failure something different. And that it took me to a direction that is very interesting, right? I ended up in finance and in financial sales, primarily for corporations rather than individuals. But I found my niche there. In reality, it was a failed marriage that taught me how to be more responsible. Something else that I know Addison's here. I think he plays football. And one of the things that happened to me, I went to ball when I was in high school. And my mother couldn't take me to the classes, no? And guess what? 1989 came, long time ago, before a lot of you were even born. But you know what happened in 1989? The Miami Hurricanes won the national championship. I had a choice between going to Citadel Military College in South Carolina or just having some fun at the U. And the first thing that I did was I convinced myself that they had an ROTC, which was an Army program. So that way I continued with the Army training. But at the same time, I love football so much that I came to the U. And that's how I ended up over here. So another weird situation, what I considered a failure, not because of necessarily because of my actions, but I made something better out of that, right? So like with this presentation, I wanted to show you a few things. So the sword isn't a weapon; it's a dual sign of resilience and hope. So on one side, you're in the battle, and you want the opposition is pushing against you. It's pushing against you, and on the other side, you have your teammates that are rallying you along. Rallying you along, and this is important to understand, particularly in the later phases in your life. What building relationship, what it does, it makes things a lot easier for you to do, for you to be successful. And I'll give you more examples later on. But like I mentioned to you, my parents' divorce was a moment that I couldn't control. Yet I made a better situation out of that. The benefit was that I appreciated much more my interactions with my dad, that I learned finances, and that it allowed me to be at a better position, right? And this is an interesting situation. when I started in my finance career, I set up to do something, and I had a good conversation today with you guys, with Dom and Mike, because it reminded me, you know, from the very beginning, from when I was 21 years old and I started my first job, I did not want that to be a failure. None of the jobs that I started with, I started saying, you know what, I'm gonna fail at this, or something's gonna happen that I'm going to change. No, I wanted for plans to continue, but something completely different happened, and then it led me into a different direction, right? Um, a big one was when I turned 26 years old, and for that, I'll let me shut down the camera here. Go back to. Let me see if I can stop this real quick. Guys, between 22 and 25, 26, I was in a path that I thought was, career enhancing. I was doing everything like many of you said your standards too. I was an analyst at a bank. Later, I got promoted a year and a half into it to a commercial lender, and then, well, at work became a commercial lender. Then I changed it to correspondent banking in another bank that I was working on, and I was doing good, but I had a big ego, right? I had a big ego. And I realized that my surrounding cast was not the most appropriate one. My bosses were doing some things that were illegal, and I had noticed some of them, no, not everybody. Some of them were having relationships that were inappropriate at work. And here I was married at 25 years old. What kind of example were these people to me? And how did I deal with that? Right. And then when I started having questions about these things, I started talking to my dad, who I built a relationship with later on in life that was more like a friendship, more like a mentoring relationship. Guess what? At 26 years old, when I was 26 years old, he passed away. And I could tell you that I remember talking to my wife, and I felt numb, and it was I cried a lot because I knew I was doing things right. I had great career. I got married. I had great plans, but I was doing it all wrong. I was doing it all wrong. I was just too egocentric, too focused on myself, and realizing that I was hurting other people. I was traveling too much, doing things that were taking time away from home, focused too much on things that were not that important, right? And these failures led me to, believe it or not, to hit the wall, and I crumbled, and I decided, literally, I said, God, you are the only one that could help me out in this mess that I have. So what is the first thing that I did? My wife and my wife was Catholic. I became Catholic later on, which led me to a young adult ministry. And that young adult ministry led me to hang out with a bunch of successful individuals that were all, trying to move forward. Some of them were becoming boyfriend and girlfriend. Some of them were married. Some of them started having kids. And that group of people that we surrounded ourselves for 3-4 years, those people became people that I could rely on so that I could build the new foundation. The priest asked me to lead the young adult ministry, which my wife and I did for 6-7 years. And then in 2006, Michelle was born. And I said, you know what? Time out. I have too many things going on. I need to take a break. Well, little did I know that that break was from 2007 to 2014 when I restarted my work with helping young adults through Apprentice Worldwide, which now you know, with a completely different focus. But my hurts, my isolation, and my feeling frustrated, right, led to something else. No? And that was in 2014. 2014, I built Apprentice Worldwide to help young adults. Little did I know that when I started recruiting mentors to this program, right? Little did I know that I was going to build a network that later on took me out of another situation. So in 2014, I started Apprentice Worldwide. I started recruiting people around the world. It didn't start with Apprentice Worldwide. It was Apprentice Miami. All of a sudden, we have people in Colombia. We have people in Brazil. We have people in Africa. You know, I didn't know this, but this building and being in interaction with all these people gave me something which would led me to my next phase, which is in 2017, I lost my job at Wells Fargo. And I had taken this big promotion at the bank. And I switched from Bank of America to Wells Fargo thinking that it was going to be great. They gave me a tremendous signing bonus. And then little did I know that a year and a half into it, I caught one of my bosses doing something that he shouldn't have been doing with the finances. I confronted him. And yes, Wells Fargo was making cuts, and eventually I was going to get cut, but I was the first one to get cut. Why? Because I stood up for something that I believe was wrong, right? And ended up without a job. I joined another institution immediately after that by going to a networking event. I got an offer, and 3 months later, in August 2017, on the 89th day, I get let go. Why? Because in the day 90, my institution was supposed to pay me severance, no? And they didn't want to do that. And then in November 2017, my mother passed away. So all these things happened. 2017, I get beat up like a drum, right? And guess what happened? And I'll share this something with you. Funny enough, Carlos Harding, who you heard before and is going to speak later on, Mike Babbitt came into my life. You know, they came at pivotal times when I was, you know, felt like a failure, right? After building a career that to me, you know, was very successful. And what they told me is, Hernan, all you have to do here is do not go into isolation, right? Step back and fail forward. And what that meant is get out from whatever it is that you have in your head and just do it. Just go to the next thing. And the first thing I did, I started going to entrepreneur events because I decided I was going to start a consulting firm. And guess what? Luis Izquierdo, who is not here, but it's a good friend of mine, Luis. I saw him. I rekindled my relationship that I had built when I was a young account executive at another bank. He was in these entrepreneur meetups. And we used to go every week to this entrepreneur meetup to have breakfast. And I did that consistently, time and time again. And that built what is the resilience that I needed for the next thing, which is to keep moving forward. In that period, I can tell you guys, that period for me, believe it or not, was the period that I had more fun, because when I changed my mentality and I realized that I could do anything, I started learning about AI, learning about blockchain, learning about tokenization at a time when nobody was doing these things. I became the country head for Planet of Finance. And eventually, I did an event in Boston for Apprentice Worldwide, where I took some of the associates to that event in Boston. And that single event, believe it or not, as we were coming back, I went to visit one of my old mentors in Boston, in Walpole. And guess what? I told him about my situation. A week later, he calls me, Hernan, I want you to be my head of sales. I know you've been looking for a while. We need a head of sales. Would you be interested? And it's like, heck yes. Heck yes, I need the cash flow. My daughter's going to college. Thank you for saving my life. No? And he did, which I appreciate. Good friend of mine, Al Giandomenico, great mentor and friend. I started working for him, 2018. Guess what happens? I was doing trade credit insurance at an institution. You heard the word trade credit insurance. In 2020, the pandemic hit. No credit. Nobody was borrowing money. Therefore, my business, went to hell. Al kept us for a while. He sliced our salaries in half, but he did that to allow for others to survive. And I say, I'll stick with you for as long as I can, and I did. But in 2021, an opportunity came, and a friend of mine that I helped with his resume and in his interview for the Small Business Administration, he got that position. Later on, called me to run the Small Business Administration, became the head of Florida and Puerto Rico. Little did I know, Dan, who's the head of the SBA programs nationally, he gave me a job that allowed me to survive. And then that experience, believe it or not, with the federal government is what led to a bank. A friend of mine that was looking for a banking executive with government experience to deal with the regulators brought me to the position that I have today as the CEO of a bank in the United States. So, these things you're not going to see, and I share this with you because these things you're not going to see in my resume, right? I'm not going to share my stories with everybody in the world about my failures, but they are the basics of the foundation of who I am and what I have built, which is a successful, spotty and rocky and roller coastery career that I believe is at the best stage that I have, and I, knock on wood, all because of the hardships and the lessons that I learned throughout my life. And the reason that I share this with you is only one, and it's for you to know that when you see yourself in a time that you feel that you're failing, the first thing that I do is pray, but that's a different mentality because I know that every time I hear about, God and or whatever it is that you have in your heart, I need that in my heart to calm myself and to motivate myself with words of inspiration. That's the first thing that I do. I get out of a rut, I start praying, and then I start listening to words of affirmation. I do it through Bible readings. Some people do it through motivational things like Tony Robbins and things like that. Or I listen to one of Mo's speeches, and then whatever it is, that gets me out of a rut. So I start with the basics. I remove myself from isolation. And then the second thing is I surround myself with phenomenal individuals. And I don't have the answer to everything, but I try to find good hearts along the way that will help me get out of a certain situation. I no longer do what I used to do when I was a kid. I used to use people, quote unquote, into to accomplish a mission, to get a job. And then what I realized is that later on that the most important things, the ones that got me out of the rotten situations, were the people that I invested time with. that I built relationship based on trust, and that I found some things in common to build upon, not necessarily in my field, because what I cared about was the person, you know, and building that relationship with the person. As you can see, failures, right, are a series of choices. You know? You can choose, you know, to step back. You can choose to step back and do nothing, and you'll fail. You will not fail at all because you're not taking any chances. Or you put yourself out there and you start failing and going, okay, I know what to do. I failed. I am in isolation. I got to get out of this isolation. I got to inspire myself. I got to go out and keep trying again. And I got to surround myself with good people. And I got to keep serving and helping others. It is counterproductive sometimes, because you think that when you fail at something, that you have nothing to give, but you have a lot to give because you're alive, right? Your smile can help me out. Your excitement can get me out of a rut. That's all you need. You have the entire power to change somebody else's life if you put yourself out there for service and helping other people. You don't have to be, this, experienced banker with 30 years of finance experience. You got to be a nice person first, and that nobody can teach you but yourself. So let me close with the end of the slides here. Let me see if I can put it for you. Can you see this? Anybody?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see it.
Awesome. So guys, this is us, right? 99% of the times, we are going to choose the path on the right, the path for success, no? But we never know what happens. You see that light on the right? We never know what happens after that mountain. It could immediately turn into this red thing later on. We don't know, right? But what we do know is that you no longer are afraid to fail, because you know, like that you will get through it, because you will pick yourself up, right? You will move from isolation. You will inspire yourself however best you can, and you will hang out with people that are going to take you to the next level, whether it's your peers or your mentors. And you start removing things that don't make sense, people that are negative, right? People that are putting you down, people that don't understand your what you're trying to accomplish. You know what? Those are times when you were, in high school and below, when you had no choice, right? Now you have a choice. You can choose who you hang out with. You can choose what you do. You can choose who inspires you. And you can choose to either remain in the corner in the dark, or you can choose to move forward without worrying about what path it is, because you know that the stories that I'm telling you are it's gonna happen in your life. Don't worry about it. Just take the chance. So the trigger event is your dream ends, dead end. You believe that you failed in your dream. You refuse to trust an unseen future. And what do? You quit the tournament. Or you see it as a closed door, right? Recognizing that you have to pivot, change, no? And then you let go of that and move quickly to the next thing. I know it's sad to hear, but sometimes we get stuck in that isolation, in that dead end moment, in that quitting of the tournament, when your game is not done yet. You're just starting, right? Failure demands that we trust a future that we cannot see. That's very important, no? And I always go back to my dad's sword, no? If you're in this situation where when you think about failure, you go, the first thing is you embrace, in this case we're using the World Cup team, no? You embrace the penalty miss and you let your failure be your teacher. Professor Mistake is the best professor. And what I love is learning from others' failures much better, right? Rather than learning from my failure. One of the things that happen a lot is I have siblings. My siblings screwed up a lot. You know, I pray for them a lot, but they screwed a lot, and I learned a lot from it. No, but when it hurt me directly, no, then I had to take care of myself and my mental health and all these things, one thing at a time. No? Keep your sword up, right? Keep your sword up, not because you want to cut somebody. That's not the end. You know, the end goal is that you try to win at something, but you know, you might win by making a few cuts here and there. But when you stretch out your arm and put it right up from the floor, you raise it up. Your floor, you can't go any lower than the floor, no? You raise it up, and your friends see your arm stretch. They're gonna grab your arm, sword and all, you know, because the battle continues. They need that sword. But you were not done yet, and all you had to do was raise your hand. No. One of the things that you have to do is harvest the seeds planted by unchosen setbacks. Remember the people that help you out always, and try to be of service to those people. And obviously, you know, this is a lesson that you learn by doing. No, it's just because we're here in this world to take, and that is so wrong. We're here to give, right? And then in return you get things, right? And you just hope and pray that in return happens, like it happened to me. But guess what? Let it all out. Let it all out. Help people out. And you don't know. And it doesn't matter. That's not the point, right? The point is you play the game, right? You play the game. And the tactical redirection is you treat the closed door as transfers to a bigger assignment, no? The tournament isn't won by the team that never gets scored on. It's won by the team that adapts best to going a goal down. So I don't know about you, but you know, I learned lesson after lesson after lesson, and I am now than I was when I started 30 years ago, because I know I make the same mistake again.
You get mad.
Sorry, Alan.
Oh, you know what? What I want for you? You're gonna notice how bad it is. Walk the Brooklyn Bridge when
Let
it's
me see
already
if I can.
First day,
There we go. Sorry, Alan. In closing, guys, failing forward. What are you afraid of? Huh? By the way, I read a book like 4 or 5 years ago called Falling Upward. And Falling Upward, it's a great book that tells you about the first and the second half of your life. It's basically when you are usually you learn what the purpose in life is when you're down, right? It's not when everything's perfect. It's just when something happens to you, and then you realize that you're made for something even greater, no? And the failing forward part is, you know, you cannot fail and set back, because you lose whatever game you have never started, right? You have to fail forward. From now on, that is your mantra, okay? Fail forward. And whenever I see you, you know that I tell you, you know, you gotta continue. You gotta keep pursuing, because nobody's gonna do it, right? My dad passed away at 26. My mom passed away in 2017, you know, the only ones that could kick my butt are my wife and my friends. And they do a pretty good job at it, by the way. But I need that. And I do the same to them. Right? Because why? Because I love them and they love me. Why? Because we're cool people. Not necessarily because they're financially successful. Well, maybe that too. Maybe that helps pay some bills. Okay. But that shouldn't be the focus of your life, for sure. All right. With that being said, let me stop the recording.